You owned the company. Trying to throw us out?
Somto's voice cracked across the tiny tailoring shop. Obiora stood before her in clean clothes now. No longer the tired, homeless man she had allowed to sleep behind her sewing tables. She slammed the spare key onto the counter. For days you ate my food. You slept under my roof. I defended you when people called you useless, and all this time you were a billionaire. Obiora opened his mouth. Somto raised one hand. No, don't explain yet. Tell me one thing. Did you know your company was coming for this compound? His silence answered before his lips did. 3 days earlier, this same man had been sleeping outside her shop in a torn charcoal shirt, with no phone, no wallet, and nowhere safe to go. Somto had one reason to help him. He was human. What she did not know was that bringing him home would drag her straight into a battle involving money, power, betrayal, and the roof over her own head. Stay with this story, because the billionaire reveal is only where the real trouble begins. And before we continue, tell us in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there right now. If stories about dignity, choices, and consequences speak to you, subscribe and stay with us. Because Somto was about to discover that sometimes the person you rescue can also be connected to the very thing threatening your life. 4 days before that confrontation, Somto Ibe was fighting with a zipper, not a person, not a landlord, not a company. A stubborn cream-colored zipper on a bridesmaid dress that had already swallowed 2 hours of her morning and 1 good needle. "Behave yourself," she muttered, leaning closer to the machine. The old butterfly sewing machine answered with a dry, metallic cough. Somto stopped. She looked at it. The machine looked innocent. "You too?" From the doorway, somebody laughed. Somto glanced up. It was Halima Yusuf from the room across the compound, already dressed for work in a plain navy abaya and white trainers, a plastic lunch bowl tucked under one arm. "You are now threatening equipment before 8 in the morning." It started first, of course. Halima stepped into the shop and placed a small sachet of groundnuts beside the tape measure. "Eat something before your stomach begins to insult customers." Somto waved her away, but she smiled. Her shop was not really a shop. It was the front room of the 2-room space she rented inside an old compound in Isolo, Lagos. She had removed one internal door, pushed her bed and cooking things into the back room, and turned the front into a tiny tailoring place with 2 machines, 1 cutting table and a wall rail carrying dresses under clear nylon. On good days, 3 customers could stand inside without touching each other. On bad days, 1 wedding gown could occupy the whole republic. Somto had been saving for a proper shop near the main road for almost 2 years. She kept the money in a separate account and wrote every deposit in a blue exercise book. 40,000, 25, 10. Some months she added nothing. Some months an Aso Ebi season saved her. The page had reached a number that finally looked like possibility. Not yet enough, but possibility. She bent over the dress again. That was when Halima stopped at the door. "Your man is there." Somto did not look up. "Which man?" "The one that has been watching your shop like unpaid security." Now Somto looked. Across the narrow road, under the shade of a closed provisions kiosk, sat the same middle-aged man she had seen 2 mornings before. He was not exactly watching the shop. That would have been easier to explain. He sat with his back against the painted concrete, knees raised hands resting loosely over them. His charcoal shirt had lost one cuff button. Dust sat along the hem of his beige trousers. His beard was not long, just several days beyond what a man who cared about shaving would allow. Beside him was a black nylon bag. Small, too small to contain a life. "You see," Halima said. "I see a man sitting down. You saw him yesterday too." "Yes, and the day before." "Yes, and you are not concerned." Somto picked up her scissors. "Halima, if I become concerned every time somebody sits down in Lagos, I will die before lunch." "That one is different." "How?" Halima lowered her voice, although the man was too far away to hear. "He does not beg." Somto looked again. That was true. On the first morning, she had assumed he was waiting for somebody. By afternoon, he was gone. The next day, he was back. A woman selling akara near the junction had given him 2 pieces in a paper wrap. He had accepted them with both hands and thanked her. Somto had noticed because he did not stretch out his palm for more. Yesterday, one boy from the vulcanizer's shed had told him to move. The man moved. No argument, no curse. He even picked up a plastic bottle that was not his and put it in a sack beside a refuse drum. Something about that had stayed with Somto, not because it made him noble, because it made him careful. Poor people could be careless. Rich people could be dirty. Hunger did not turn anybody into a saint, but this man carried himself as if he was trying not to take up more space than necessary. Halima followed Somto's eyes. Maybe his people are looking for him. Maybe. Maybe he has mental problem. Maybe. Maybe he is dangerous. Somto turned back to the dress. "You have finished all the maybes in Nigeria. Go to work." Halima clicked her tongue, but she left. By 10, the sun had climbed hard over the roofs. Somto finished the zipper, collected payment from a woman who complained that the dress was now too perfect, and therefore made her look fatter, and spent 20 minutes arguing with a supplier on WhatsApp about missing lining material. When she looked outside again, the man had moved closer to the wall to chase the shade. He was doing something with his shirt. Somto narrowed her eyes. He had pulled a thread from the inside seam and was trying to push it through the eye of a small needle. The needle was rusty. The missing cuff button lay in his palm. He tried once, twice, 3 times. The thread refused. Somto watched until she became annoyed on behalf of the thread. She stepped outside. "Oga." The man looked up. His eyes were clear. That surprised her first. Not bright in a dramatic way, just present, tired but present. "You will blind yourself with that needle." He glanced at the thing in his hand. It is possible. His English was clean, educated. Another small surprise. Somto held out her hand. He looked at it. "The shirt. You want the whole shirt? The cuff. Bring it." For 1 second, a smile touched one side of his mouth. He stood. Up close, he looked older than she had first thought. Early 50s, maybe. Tall. The sort of man whose shoulders had once filled expensive shirts better than this one. He came to the doorway, but did not step inside. Somto noticed. "Come closer. I cannot sew air." He moved 1 step. She took the cuff between her fingers, found a matching dark button in a tin, and fixed it in less than a minute. The man watched the needle move. "You make it look easy. It is easy when you are not using fishing line." He looked at the thread he had pulled from the shirt. "I see." She tied the last knot and released him. "How much?" Somto stared. "For 1 button? Yes, nothing." He nodded once. "Thank you." No dramatic blessing. No speech about God rewarding her, just thank you. He turned to go. Somto heard herself ask, "What is your name?" The man stopped. "Obiora." "Obiora what?" A pause. "Nwosu, do you live around here?" Another pause, smaller this time. "Not at the moment." Somto folded her arms. That answer was doing too much work. "Where are your people?" "I am trying to reach somebody." "Since when?" He looked toward the road. "Long enough." That irritated her. Not because he owed her his biography. Because vague answers were the favorite uniform of people bringing problems. She pointed at him with the scissors still in her hand. "Fine. But if you want help, answer direct questions. People cannot help smoke." He looked at her properly then. Something changed in his face. Not offense. Recognition, maybe. "You are right." Somto went back inside. She expected him to leave. Instead, he said, "Your supplier is wrong." She turned. "What?" "The man you were arguing with. If he invoiced you for 20 meters and delivered 16, do not accept a credit note that does not state the original invoice number." Somto blinked. He had heard part of the WhatsApp call. "How do you know what he sent?" "You said it loudly. I was angry. Yes. Were you counting my words too?" "No." He hesitated. "Only your meters." Somto tried not to laugh. She failed. That was the first time. By noon, Obiora had disappeared. Somto told herself she was relieved. At 4:30, he was back. This time the sky behind him was bruised purple. Lazos rain did not ask permission. Wind came first, throwing dust down the road. Traders shouted. Nylon sheets snapped over tables. A woman ran after a tray of oranges that had started rolling like small fugitives. Somto rushed to pull 2 dresses inside. The rain landed all at once. Heavy. Straight. Within seconds, the gutter became brown water. Obiora stood under the shallow roof of the closed kiosk, but the wind pushed rain sideways. His charcoal shirt darkened. "Move!" Somebody shouted at him. 2 young men were dragging a freezer away from the rain. "Move from there, I beg. You want block everywhere?" Obiora picked up his nylon bag. He moved. There was nowhere useful to move to. The awning over Somto's shop was narrow but dry. She saw him glance at it. Then at her. He did not approach, that did it. He looked up. "Come here before rain finishes the remaining cents in your head." He crossed the road carefully. Water covered his sandals. Somto pointed at a plastic chair near the doorway. "Sit there. Thank you." "Do not thank me yet. You are dripping on my customer's lace." He shifted the chair 2 inches. Rain hammered the zinc roofing. For a while, neither of them spoke. Somto worked. Obiora sat. When the power went out, as it often did when weather turned bad, Somto swore under her breath and pushed the pedal machine closer to the window. Obiora watched the street fill with water. "Do you have somewhere to sleep tonight?" she asked. He did not answer quickly enough. Somto's hand stopped on the cloth. That was not a philosophical question. "No. No. You do not have somewhere." "No." She took a breath. "Where did you sleep yesterday?" "Near a mechanic's shed." "And the day before?" "A bus stop for part of the night." Somto put the cloth down. How did this happen? Obiora rubbed one thumb over the edge of his opposite hand. "My phone and wallet were stolen. My identification was inside the wallet. I have been trying to reach people." "Police?" "I reported it." "Bank?" "Without identification, and without my phone, the quickest options became less quick." "Family?" His face closed. "My wife is dead." Somto's questions slowed. "Children?" "One daughter. She lives abroad." "Does she not know your number?" "I know hers." I have not been able to reach her yet. Why? He looked embarrassed now. That, more than anything, made the answer believable. I do not know the current number by memory. Everything was in my phone. Somto made a face. That is how modern people will die. Nobody knows anybody's number again. Obiora almost smiled. I know one old office number. Did you call? Yes. And? They did not believe me. Somto stared. What kind of office does not know its own worker? I did not say I was a worker. Before she could push, Halima came running through the rain with her handbag over her head. She reached the doorway, breathless, saw Obiora, and stopped. Her eyes went to Somto, then to Obiora, then back to Somto. No, Somto frowned. Know what? Whatever you are thinking. I have not said anything. Your face has said it. Obiora stood. I can go. Sit down, Somto and Halima said together. The two women looked at each other. Obiora sat. Halima wiped rain from her forehead. Sir, do you know where you are? Obiora gave her a tired look. Inside a tailoring shop. Good. Your name? Obiora Nwosu. Any illness? Not that I know of. Have you been drinking? No. Taking anything? No. Head injury? No. Are you running from police? No. Somto pressed her lips together. Halima continued. Are you running from somebody's husband? Obiora's eyebrows lifted. Somto burst out laughing. Even Halima smiled. No, Obiora said. Not that either. Halima pulled a small torch from her bag and looked briefly at his pupils, then at his hands. You are dehydrated. I have been drinking water. Not enough. She turned to Somto. One night. Front room only. Door between your room and shop stays locked. He sleeps here, not inside your personal room. Somto nodded. Obiora stood again. I do not want to cause trouble. Somto looked at him. You are already trouble. We are just deciding the size. He gave a soft breath that might have been a laugh. One night, she said. Tomorrow morning, you start calling people. Properly. I am not opening a shelter. I understand, and no smoking. I do not smoke. No drinking. I do not drink much. That answer is suspicious. Then no drinking. And if anything in this shop disappears, even one zip, I will know. How? I count my zips. Obiora looked around at the shelves. I believe you. When the rain reduced, Halima brought an old foam mattress from her room. Somto found one clean sheet and a towel. She cooked rice with tomato stew, enough for all three of them, and they ate in the front room with the sewing machines pushed to one side. Obiora did not eat like a starving man. He ate slowly. Too slowly, Somto thought, pride again. When he finished, he washed his plate without being asked. At 10, Somto locked the door between the shop and her room. Then she checked it twice. Kindness did not require stupidity. She lay on her bed listening. For several minutes. Nothing. Then a small sound from the front. A cough. The scrape of the foam mattress. Silence. Somto stared at the ceiling. She had allowed a strange man into her place. A man with no phone, no wallet. No address he was willing to give properly. If Halima had not been across the compound, she would never have done it. Even now, she wondered if she had made a foolish decision. Then she remembered the way he had stood in the rain, instead of forcing himself under her awning. She remembered him asking how much for one button. She turned onto her side. One night, she whispered to herself. In the front room, Obiora Nwosu was lying awake too, but not because he was afraid of Somto. He was thinking about a telephone number he had not used in 7 years, and about a company whose name Somto had not yet heard. A company carrying his surname, a company that, at that very moment, was moving faster than he knew. Somto woke before dawn to the smell of something burning. She sat up so fast, her wrapper twisted around her knees. For 1 second, she forgot Obiora was in the next room. Then she heard metal scrape. Somto grabbed the short wooden ruler she kept beside her bed and opened the connecting door. Obiora was standing near the entrance with one of her plastic stools upside down. Ah, he turned. Somto raised the ruler. What are you doing? Fixing this. At 5 in the morning. The leg was loose. So you decided to become carpenter. Obiora looked at the ruler in her hand. Should I be concerned? Somto looked down at it. No good. She lowered the ruler. The smell came from the mosquito coil near the door. It had burned too close to a scrap of cardboard. Obiora stamped it out. Somto stared at the stool. One leg had always leaned slightly. She had meant to tighten the screw for 3 months. Now it stood level. You know how to repair furniture? I know how to turn a screwdriver. Where did you get screwdriver? Your drawer. Somto's face changed. Obiora saw it immediately. He put both hands away from the stool. The drawer under the cutting table was partly open. I should have asked. Yes, I am sorry. Somto walked to the drawer and checked it. Scissors, screwdriver, chalk, spare machine oil, nothing missing. She closed it. Do not open my things without asking. I will not. That was all. No wounded pride. No, after all I did for you. No attempt to make her feel guilty for setting a boundary. Somto noticed that too. By 7, she had given him a cup of tea and half a loaf with egg. Then she placed her phone on the cutting table. Call your people. Obiora wiped his fingers. He entered the number he had remembered during the night. The line rang. Once. Twice. A recorded voice said the number was unavailable. Obiora tried again. Same thing, he frowned. You are sure? It used to belong to an old colleague. Used to? Yes. How old is old? 7 years. Somto stared at him. You have been sleeping outside because you remember one number from 7 years ago? When you say it like that, it sounds unwise. It is unwise. He handed the phone back. I also know the company switchboard. What company? Obiora hesitated. Somto pointed at him. Direct questions. He looked almost amused. Nwosu Freight and Storage. Somto typed the name into her phone without thinking. A company website appeared. The data connection was slow. The page loaded in pieces. A logo, a photograph of containers, a warehouse, then text. She glanced at Obiora. Nwosu? Yes, your surname. Yes, family business? In a manner of speaking. What manner? Complicated. Somto sucked her teeth. Smoke again, he sighed. I founded it. Somto stopped. Then she laughed. Not cruelly. Just because the sentence was too large for the man in front of her. You founded Nwosu Freight and Storage. Yes. You. Yes. She looked at the website, then at his dusty sandals. Then back at the website. Obiora, I am not insulting you, but if you want me to help you, do not start telling me stories. I am not telling you a story. You founded this? Yes. How big is it? He looked away. That is not relevant. It is now relevant. He did not answer. Somtos slid the phone toward him. Call. Obiora dialed the switchboard. A woman answered. Good morning, Nwosu Freight and Storage. How may I direct your call? Obiora's posture changed. It was small. His shoulders straightened. His voice became firmer. Good morning. This is Obiora Nwosu. I need to speak with the company secretary or Mr. George. There was a pause. Sorry, sir. Your name? Obiora Nwosu. Another pause. Do you have an extension? No. Which department are you calling from? I am not calling from a department. Tell Mrs. Akinyemi that Obiora Nwosu is on the line. Somto watched his face. The receptionist became more cautious. Sir, are you a client? No. I'm sorry, I cannot transfer personal calls without verification. Then, ask Mrs. Akinyemi one question. Sir, ask her whether the blue file from Port Harcourt was ever closed. The line went quiet. Somto stopped smiling. The receptionist returned. Sir, I'm afraid Mrs. Akinyemi no longer works with the company. Obiora's jaw tightened. Since when? I cannot provide staff information. Connect me to Mr. Tayo George. Mr. George is unavailable. Tell him Obiora Nwosu called. Sir, we have had impersonation attempts involving senior executives. Please send an email through the contact form. Obiora stared at the phone. I do not have access to my email. Then please visit our office with identification. His eyes closed for 1 second. My identification was stolen. I'm sorry, sir. There is nothing else I can do. The call ended. Somto did not speak immediately. Obiora placed the phone down carefully. She leaned against the cutting table. You were serious? Yes. You really worked there? Yes. You said founded. I did. Somto shook her head. No, let us not jump. He looked tired. Fair. Maybe you were one of the first staff. He did not argue. That annoyed her more. Why are you not fighting me? Because if I were in your position, I would not believe me either. Somto folded her arms. Do you have any other proof? My face. She looked at the company website. The front page had no chairman portrait. Your face is currently not helping. I know. Can we search your name? Obiora hesitated again. Somto saw it. What? I have kept a low public profile for years. Because my wife hated attention. After she died, I hated it more. Somto typed his full name. Results came slowly. A business article from several years earlier. An old photograph attached to a logistics conference report. The image was small and grainy. Somto pinched the screen. A younger man in glasses stood beside 3 other people. She looked at Obiora. Same forehead, same narrow line around the mouth, different beard, better suit. She pinched again. Obiora said nothing. Somto sat down. Jesus, I would prefer if we did not make this bigger than it needs to be. She stared at him. You are sleeping on my floor. Yes. And you founded a company. Yes. How much money do you have? That is exactly the kind of question I do not want to answer. Because you are lying. No. Because if I answer, everything about this room changes. Somto frowned. The room is still small, for you, and for you, a faint smile. Fair Somto looked at the photograph again. The article was old enough that it did not prove his current role. Still, something shifted, not belief. Possibility. Why did they not recognize your voice? Most current reception staff have never spoken to me. I stopped going into the head office regularly after my wife died. Tayo handles day-to-day operations. Tayo is the man you asked for? Yes. Can he help? Yes. Then why did they not tell him? I do not know. The answer came too quickly. Somto looked at him. You suspect something. I suspect nothing useful yet. Meaning suspicion without information is how people make stupid decisions. Somto sat back. That sounded like experience. Not necessarily billionaire experience, but experience. She pointed to the floor. You can stay tonight too. Obiora blinked. Somto, do not make me regret it. I will pay you back. Her face hardened. With what? Billionaire almost winced. Not like that. Then do not promise me money. Find your people. He nodded. That day, Obiora did not sit idle. Somto discovered he was bad at folding fabric. Terrible. He made neat squares that were the wrong size and mixed finished pieces with scraps. She took the pile from him. Please, before you destroy my business. I thought I was helping. You are increasing labor. He moved to the door. Can I sweep? You know how? He gave her a flat look. Somto handed him the broom. By noon, he had swept the front, cleaned the windows, and reorganized a box of old receipts without touching the account book. At one point, Somto was on the phone with Mr. Sei, the agent who handled the compound. She was asking why the water tank had not been repaired. Sei was doing what Sei always did, using many words to avoid one answer. Madam Somto, you have to understand that the landlord has certain administrative processes. The tank has been leaking for 2 weeks. Yes, but there are broader property considerations. Does broader consideration drink water? Obiora, sitting at the other end of the room, lowered his face to hide a smile. Sei continued, and anyway, all tenants should begin preparing for possible changes. Somto stopped. What changes? Nothing confirmed. What changes? There are discussions around the property. What discussions? You people will receive notice. What notice? Sei sighed dramatically. Madam, I am not the owner. You collect rent like owner. That is unnecessary. So is refusing to answer. The call ended with no answer. Somto threw the phone onto the table. Useless man. Obiora looked up. What kind of tenancy do you have? She stared at him. Why? You said he mentioned notice. Yearly rent. We renew. Why? Do you have receipts? Somto pointed to the blue folder. All. Any written agreement? Yes. Keep copies somewhere else. She frowned. Why? Because if ownership changes, the first thing people lose is not always the building. Sometimes it is certainty about what was agreed. Somto looked at him. You talk like lawyer. I am not. Accountant? No. Property person? Not exactly. Everything about you is not exactly. He smiled. That evening, Halima returned, carrying 2 meat pies and suspicion. She had spent her lunch break searching Obiora's name. She walked into the shop, looked at him and said, Chairman. Obiora closed his eyes. Somto burst out laughing. Halima held up her phone. Young man, this is you. I am older than you. That is not the important part. It is to me. Halima showed Somto the same old conference photograph. Then another result, an archived interview. The headline named Obiora as founder and principal shareholder of Nwosu Freight and Storage Group. Halima sat down slowly. So this is not ordinary trouble. Somto gave her 1 meat pie. I told you. No, you told me he had nowhere to sleep. You did not tell me he had warehouses. Obiora sighed. Can we please stop talking as if I am not here? Halima turned to him. Fine. Where is your money? Mostly where it was before my wallet was stolen. Then why are you here? He explained again. The robbery had happened after he left a private site visit in an older industrial area. He had gone without his regular driver because he did not want staff staging a visit for him. He had been checking complaints about property acquisition around one of the group's proposed expansion corridors. A motorcycle had cut across the car he was driving at a junction. 2 men approached while he was stopped. One smashed the side window. The other took the phone and wallet. He had not been seriously injured, but the event had rattled him. He made a police report at a nearby station and gave the officers the company name. One officer had offered to call somebody, but the number Obiora first supplied did not connect. He could have remained at the station longer. He did not. Pride. He said the word himself. I thought I could solve it in an hour. Halima nodded slowly. And 1 hour became several. Why did you not go to your head office physically? I tried the next day. Somto looked at him. You never said. I got as far as the gate. And I had no identification. The security team had instructions that I was away, and that anyone claiming otherwise should be held outside until management verified. Halima frowned. They did not recognize you. 2 of them did not. 1 seemed uncertain. I left before it became a scene. Somto's eyes narrowed. You left? Yes. Because? Obiora looked ashamed. Because I was embarrassed. Somto leaned back. There it was. The rich man's stupidity, she understood. Not magic. Pride. You preferred bus stop to embarrassment. When you say it like that, I will always say it like that. Halima laughed. Obiora shook his head. I had also begun to wonder why nobody from management had responded to the message I left. That quieted the room. Somto set down her meat pie. So you stayed away because you thought something was wrong? Partly. The first night was pride. The second was confusion. By the third, I wanted to reach somebody outside the current chain. Who? A former company secretary. Esther Akinyemi. You know her number? I remembered the old one. It is dead. Halima tapped her phone. Search. Obiora shook his head. She retired. I do not want to drag her into this unless I am sure. Somto stared at him. You are sleeping on foam in a tailoring shop and still choosing who not to disturb. He looked at her. Yolande. Yes. That is why rich people suffer differently. You people have pride budget. Halima laughed so hard, she nearly dropped her drink. Even Obiora laughed. It changed the air. For the next 2 days, life did something strange. It made room for him. Obiora slept in the front room. Somto woke before him. Sometimes he woke before her. He fetched water when the compound pump worked. He learned not to touch her drawers. He discovered where she kept the broom. She discovered he could make tea so strong it could threaten a person. He washed his charcoal shirt at night and hung it behind the shop. Somto gave him an old cream t-shirt from a customer who had abandoned alteration 6 months earlier. He refused at first. It is not charity, she said. It is unpaid storage becoming cloth. He accepted. At work, Somto kept sewing. Life did not pause because a possible billionaire was sleeping beside a machine. Customers came. A bride cried because her mother wanted sleeves. A mother cried because her daughter did not want sleeves. One man came to shorten trousers and spent 15 minutes explaining how tailoring worked to Somto. Obiora watched that one with fascination. After the man left, he asked, "Does that happen often?" "Men explaining my job." "Yes. Every week, and you tolerate it." "I collect money first." Obiora nodded. "Good system." There were quieter moments, too. On the 3rd evening, Nipa took light just before dinner. Somto and Obiora sat outside with Halima and 3 other tenants. The compound smelled of kerosene, frying pepper, and wet concrete. A little boy chased a bottle cap. Somebody's radio played old highlife from a room upstairs. Obiora looked around as if he had not sat in a place like that for years. Mr. Bello, the barber downstairs, did not know who he was. Neither did Mama Titi, who sold provisions near the gate. To them, Obiora was simply, the man Somto is helping. That title bothered Somto. She corrected Mama Titi once. He is helping himself too, Obiora heard. Later, when they were alone, he said, "Thank you." For what? For saying that. Somto shrugged. "You sweep," he smiled. The next morning, trouble arrived on white paper. Sei came with 2 men and a stack of notices. He did not enter the compound quietly. He stood by the gate and called tenants out one by one. "Nothing has happened yet," he kept saying. "This is just to prepare everybody." Somto took the paper. Proposed deed property transfer and redevelopment. Words were formal enough to be frightening. The notice said, discussions were underway for acquisition of the compound and adjacent properties. Tenants were advised that future possession requirements could change subject to formal notice and applicable agreements. Somto read it twice. Who is buying? Sei rubbed his forehead. "Madam, all details are not final. Who is buying? It is a corporate buyer." "Name?" He looked at her. "You like questions too much." "I pay rent too much." One of the men beside him snorted. Sei glared at him. Then he pointed to the lower section. Somto read, "Acquisition Representative, Meridian Urban Assets Limited." She did not know the name. Obiora, standing inside the shop doorway, did. His face changed, only for a second. Somto saw it. What? Nothing. That was not nothing. Sei had already moved to the next tenant. Somto carried the notice into the shop. Obiora took it. His eyes moved over the page. When he reached the company name, he became very still. "What is Meridian Urban Assets?" Somto asked. "A project company." "Whose?" He looked at her. "I need to confirm." "Obiora, I need to confirm." He reached for her phone. Somto did not give it. "Somto, please." The please was quiet, not commanding. She handed him the phone. He searched the company name. The connection crawled. A corporate registry summary from an old press release appeared. Meridian Urban Assets was described as a development affiliate working with Nwosu Freight and Storage Group on logistics-linked property projects. Somto read it over his shoulder. Then she looked at him. "Nwosu." Obiora did not answer. "Nwosu. Yes, you're Nwosu." A long pause. "Yes." The room seemed to shrink. Somto took the notice from his hand. "You knew about this?" "No. Your company is buying where I live." I said I did not know. "You came here because you were checking property complaints." "Yes." "This one?" "I do not know yet. Do not give me smoke. I am not." The proposed corridor included several parcels. I did not have every address. Somto's voice lowered. "Were people supposed to leave?" "Not without proper process." "That is not what I asked." Obiora looked at the notice again. "The original plan I reviewed involved negotiated acquisition and relocation support for occupied properties." "Original plan, yes, and now?" "I do not know." Somto laughed once. There was no humor in it. Interesting. Somto, very interesting. He reached toward the notice. She pulled it away. "I need to call somebody. So do all of us." That evening, she made copies of every rent receipt in her folder. Obiora helped arrange them by year. Neither of them spoke much. At one point, he said, "You should photograph these and send them to yourself." Somto did. Then she photographed the notice. She sent copies to Halima, Mr. Bello, and 2 other tenants Obiora watched. "What?" "Nothing." "You are doing that face again." "What face?" "The one where your brain is holding meeting without us." He leaned back. "You do not wait for permission to create a record, because permission forgets." That sentence stayed with him. After midnight, when Somto had gone to bed, Obiora sat alone beside the sewing machine. He read the notice again. Meridian Urban Assets. He knew who had pushed for that structure, Tayo George. He also knew something Somto did not. Before his phone was stolen, Tayo had sent him 3 messages asking for urgent approval on corridor consolidation. Obiora had not approved it. He had asked questions. Then he disappeared, and now notices were moving. For the first time since the robbery, his problem stopped being personal. He was no longer thinking about his wallet, or his pride, or even his company title. He was thinking about the blue exercise book Somto used to record her savings, about the dresses hanging from her rail, about Mr. Bellows' barber chair, about Halima's room, about all the lives hidden inside the phrase property consolidation. And he understood something unpleasant. Even if Tayo had exceeded authority, the company still carried Obiora's name. That meant the distance he had created after his wife's death was not neutral. Somebody had been filling it. The next morning, Somto woke to find Obiora already dressed in the charcoal shirt. The button she had sewn was still there. He was standing outside the shop with her phone pressed to his ear. "You found her?" Obiora lifted one finger. A woman's voice came faintly through the speaker. "Who is this again?" "Esther, listen to me." There was silence. Obiora continued. April 2017. Port Harcourt, Blue File. "You told me if I signed before Chukuma sent the second valuation, you would resign that afternoon." The silence changed. Somto could hear it without hearing anything. Then the woman said very softly, "Sir?" Obiora closed his eyes. "Yes, sir, where are you?" Somto stopped moving. The word did it, not chairman, not billionaire. "Sir," spoken by somebody whose disbelief had just broken. Obiora turned away from Somto. "I am safe. Everybody has been saying you traveled. I did not." A chair scraped on the other end. "Are you injured?" "No." "Where is your phone?" "Stolen." "Your daughter?" "I have not reached her yet." "Good God, Esther, I need you to listen carefully. Do not call the office. Not yet." Somto's eyes narrowed. The woman said, "Why?" "I need to know what has been happening since last week. And I need a solicitor who can help me replace documents without turning this into public theater." "Sir, this is already serious." "I know. I left that company years ago." "I know. You cannot ask me to. I am not asking you to return. I am asking you to help me confirm who I can trust." There was another pause. The woman's voice became firmer. "I will call Barrister Daniels." Obiora exhaled. "Thank you. And your daughter?" "Yes. I still have her email." His face changed at that. A father appeared where the chairman had been. "Send her a message. Tell her I am safe. Do not explain more until I speak to her." "Sir." "Yes, where are you?" Obiora looked back at Somto. "In a tailoring shop in Isolo." The woman went quiet. Somto covered her mouth so she would not laugh. Esther finally said, "I beg your pardon?" "It is a long story." Somto whispered, "Very long." Obiora ignored her. They agreed to meet that afternoon at a small private office belonging to Barrister Daniels, a solicitor Obiora had known for years, but who did not work inside the Nwosu group. When the call ended, Obiora placed the phone on the table. Somto looked at him. He looked back. Neither spoke. Then Somto said, "Chairman." Obiora rubbed his forehead. "Please do not start." "Sir Somto, founder." He gave her a warning look. She smiled. For 3 seconds, then the smile disappeared. "Who exactly are you?" Obiora pulled out the plastic chair. He sat. Somto remained standing. "My name is Obiora Nwosu. I founded Nwosu Freight and Storage 27 years ago with 2 leased trucks and 1 warehouse section we could barely afford. You own it? I am the largest shareholder. How large? Large enough that the newspapers like unhelpful words. What words? He hesitated. Somto stared. Billionaire? Obiora looked away. Somto's mouth opened. No, he said nothing. No, still nothing. Obiora, my net worth is not cash sitting in an account. Most of it is shares, property interests, investments. Billionaire? In Naira, yes. Somto sat down. For a few seconds, the only sound was a bus horn outside and the soft tick of her wall clock. Then she started laughing. Obiora watched her. She laughed until she had to wipe her eyes. This is not funny, he said. It is very funny. How? You slept beside my sewing machine. Yes, you washed your shirt behind my bathroom. Yes, you asked me how much for 1 button. That was a reasonable question. Somto laughed again. Then she stopped. The notice sat on the cutting table between them. Her face changed. Did you know? Obiora knew exactly what she meant. No, before yesterday. I knew the group was exploring acquisitions in this area. I did not know this compound was included. You were checking complaints. Yes. Complaints about what? Pressure. Unclear notices. Agents telling occupants things that did not match the framework I had been shown. Somto leaned forward. And what framework were you shown? Negotiated acquisition. Proper notice. Assistance where businesses and long-term tenants would be displaced. Not a perfect system. But not this. She tapped the notice. You say not this, yet this has your company's name behind it. Yes. So what is the difference to me? Obiora had no quick answer. Somto stood. We are going to this meeting. He looked up. You do not need to come. That was not a question. Somto, there may be confidential matters, and there may be my house. Esther and the solicitor will not discuss company business in front of. In front of what? A tailor? His face tightened. That is not what I meant. It is how it sounded. He stood. I meant you have already done more than enough. You do not owe me the next part. Somto looked at him for a long moment. Correct. Obiora waited. But you owe me answers. He nodded. That is also correct. By 2, Obiora had bathed, shaved with a razor Halima bought from the chemist, and changed into a plain white shirt borrowed from Mr. Bello. The shirt was a little tight across his shoulders. Mr. Bello stood in the shop doorway, admiring his contribution. See Chairman now. Please, Obiora said. Mr. Bello grinned. I have not told anybody. You just called him chairman loud enough for 3 compounds, Somto said. Mr. Bello lowered his voice. Chairman. Somto pushed him out. They took a ride-hailing car to Ikeja. Obiora paid nothing. That bothered him. Somto could tell. Every time the car slowed in traffic, he looked at the meter as if memorizing the fare for later. Stop counting, she said. I am not. You are. I will repay you. If you say that one more time, I will add interest. Obiora looked out the window. Understood. Barrister David Daniels' office occupied the upper floor of a modest commercial building. No marble lobby, no gold sign. Somto approved immediately. A woman in her early 60s opened the inner office door before the receptionist could announce them. Esther Akinyemi froze. She stared at Obiora. Then her eyes filled. Oh, sir. Obiora moved toward her. Esther did not hug him immediately. She hit his arm first, hard. What is wrong with you? Somto's eyebrows lifted. Obiora almost smiled. Esther, we have been hearing nonsense for days. Travel, rest. No contact. And you are here looking like somebody's stubborn uncle. I am sorry. Your daughter has been sending messages to people. His face changed. I know. No, you do not know. She thought you were ill. Obiora looked down. That landed. Somto watched him take it. No excuse. No speech about security. I should have found another way sooner. Yes. Esther finally hugged him. It lasted 3 seconds. Then she pulled back. Who is this? Obiora turned. This is Somto Iba. Esther smiled politely. My tailor, Obiora added. Somto stared at him. He corrected himself. No, sorry. She is the person who gave me somewhere safe to sleep when I had nowhere else. Esther's expression shifted. Not pity. Respect. Then I am very glad to meet you. Somto nodded. Barrister Daniels came out carrying a folder. He was a compact man with silver at temples and no patience for drama. He recognized Obiora instantly. That mattered. He checked the police report reference. Obiora had received on a paper slip. He had already contacted the appropriate channels to begin replacement identification procedures and to establish a secure line of communication with Obiora's daughter. Nothing happened magically. No one printed a new life in 10 minutes. But for the first time, Obiora had a path. Daniels also brought clothes. A navy polo shirt, dark trousers, proper shoes. Somto saw Obiora look at the bag, then at his own borrowed shirt. Something like shame crossed his face. She understood it differently now. He had not enjoyed being helpless. He had simply been helpless in ways his money did not immediately solve. Daniels said, "There is another matter." Obiora looked at him. Tayo has been telling people you authorized a temporary executive arrangement before traveling. I authorized routine operations. He is presenting it more broadly. Esther folded her arms. How broadly? Daniels opened the folder. Meridian Urban Assets has accelerated 2 acquisitions. 1 financing package is tied to completion milestones. A board committee meeting is scheduled in 3 days. Som's stomach tightened. Obiora took the papers. Daniels looked up. Yes. Somto said nothing. Obiora read. His face hardened. What exactly has Tayo signed? Some things are within delegated limits. Some are arguable. Some are not clear because the internal minutes have not reached me. Get them. I can request. I cannot seize company records because you told me to. Obiora nodded. Good. Somto noticed that too. Power had edges. Even his lawyer would not pretend otherwise. Daniels continued. If you want to return formally, we need to do it properly. Confirm identity. Notify the board. Secure your personal access. Contact your daughter and decide how much of the robbery you want publicly disclosed. Obiora stared at the page. Somto knew what he was reading because she had seen the same name. Meridian Urban Assets. Her home had entered the room. She stood. I want to ask something. Daniels looked at Obiora. Obiora said, Ask. Somto faced the solicitor. If this company buys our compound, can they just wake up and throw everybody outside? Daniels did not give her a dramatic answer. No. Your rights depend on your tenancy, the agreements, the property status, and the process followed. But you should keep every document, every notice, every receipt, and every written communication. Do not sign anything you do not understand. Somto nodded. That is what he told me. Daniels glanced at Obiora. Then for once he gave good advice before creating trouble. Esther smiled. Obiora did not. The meeting lasted nearly 2 hours. Somto understood maybe half of the corporate language, but she understood the important things. Obiora had not invented himself. He was wealthy. He was powerful. He had been absent from his own company long enough for Tayo to widen an opening. And the project threatening her compound was real. When they left, a car was waiting downstairs. Not a convoy. One dark blue SUV driven by a man named Sani, who had worked for Obiora for 11 years. The moment Sani saw him, he got out and simply stood there. His face collapsed. "Sir." Obiora walked toward him. Sani grabbed his hand with both of his. "Where have you been?" Obiora answered quietly. "Making bad decisions." Sani shook his head. "We searched." "I know." "No, sir. We searched ourselves." "But Mr. Tayo said you had instructed that nobody should involve police publicly because you wanted privacy." "We thought." Obiora went still. "What?" Sani stopped. Daniels, beside him, said, "We discussed that inside." Somto looked from one man to the other. Obiora's voice lowered. "Take us back to Isolo first." Somto frowned. "You do not need to come back." "Yes, I do." "No, your people have found you." "I have things there." "What things?" He looked at her. "My shirt." Somto almost smiled. Almost. The drive back was quiet. Sani watched Obiora through the mirror like a man afraid his employer might vanish again. At the compound gate, the SUV drew attention. Mama Titi stopped arranging tins. Mr. Bello came out with clippers still in his hand. 2 children began whispering. Somto hated it immediately. Obiora saw that. He told Sani to park farther down the road. Then he carried his own bag into the shop. Somto closed the door. She turned. Obiora was wearing the navy polo Daniels had brought. Clean, shaved, fed. He no longer looked like the man who had slept beside the machine. That was when the anger truly arrived. Not because he looked rich, because the contrast made the last 3 days feel unreal. She picked up the spare key he had used for the front door. "You own the company trying to throw us out." The question came harder than she intended. Obiora stood still. Somto slammed the key onto the counter. "For days, you ate my food. You slept under my roof. I defended you when people called you useless. And all this time you were a billionaire?" Somto. She raised one hand. "No, don't explain yet. Tell me one thing. Did you know your company was coming for this compound?" His silence answered before his lips did. Her eyes narrowed. "You knew." "I knew the company had acquisition plans in this area. I did not know this compound was part of the current list." "That is not the same answer." "No, did you know? People could lose their homes?" "I knew relocation was possible." Somto laughed once. "Cold. Relocation." He flinched at the word in her mouth. "You people have good English for carrying somebody's life. I understand why you are angry." "No. You understand because you read papers. I understand because my bed is behind that wall." She pointed. "My machine is here. My savings are for a shop I have not reached yet. Halima pays rent here. Mr. Bello has been downstairs 7 years. Mama Titi's knees cannot even climb another staircase. And somebody in your office will write relocation." Obiora did not interrupt. That made her angrier. "Say something. You are right." "No, do not give me easy right." He took a breath. "I did not approve the pressure tactics you have described. I did approve exploration of acquisitions in this corridor. I believed occupied properties would be handled through negotiation and proper support." "You believed?" "Yes." "Did you check?" "Not recently." The answer showed on his face. Somto nodded slowly. "You did not. My wife died 3 years ago." She stared. Obiora continued. I stepped back. I still reviewed major decisions. I still signed what required me. But I stopped visiting sites. I stopped asking ordinary staff what was happening. I read summaries. Somto's voice went quiet. And now? Now I am seeing what summaries leave out. She looked at him for a long moment. That could have softened her. It did not. My sympathy for your wife does not pay my rent. I know. Do you? Yes. Then why did you let me think you had nobody? His face tightened. For those days, I had nobody I could reach. You had a daughter. I could not reach her. You had staff. They blocked me. You had lawyers. I did not remember their current numbers. You had a company. A company is not a person, Somto, and yet that company can remove people. The words landed between them. Obiora looked down. Somto picked up the spare key. She held it out. Your people know where you are now. You don't need this room again. He did not take it. Somto, take the key. I can still help with, that is the problem. What? You think because you have returned to your money, now you can help. I did not mean it that way, but that is how power sounds when it does not hear itself. Obiora stared at her. Somto placed the key in his palm and closed his fingers around it. Go. He stood there another second. Then he nodded. He folded the foam mattress. Somto hated that he folded it neatly. He packed the cream t-shirt. He reached for the charcoal shirt hanging behind the shop. Somto said, "Leave it." He looked at her. "The shoulder seam is opening. I will fix it." He almost said something. Did not. He placed the shirt on the cutting table. Then he left. Somto locked the door behind him. Only after the SUV drove away did she sit. Her hands were shaking. She pressed both palms against the table. Halima came in 5 minutes later. She took one look at Somto. "What happened?" Somto laughed. "It came out wrong. I brought home a homeless billionaire whose company wants to buy our house." Halima sat down. "That sentence is too long." "I know. Are you all right?" "No." "Did he threaten you?" "No. Offer you money?" "Not yet." "Then what?" Somto looked at the folded charcoal shirt. "I think he is not a bad man." Halima waited. Somto swallowed. "That is making it worse. Because bad men were easy. You closed the door. You crossed the road. You warned your neighbors. But what did you do with a man who had washed his own plate, respected a locked door, thanked you for a button, and still owned the machinery that could grind through your life without ever knowing your name?" Obiora did not sleep well in his own house. That surprised him. The bedroom was cool. The mattress was the one he had chosen. His clothes were back where they belonged. His watch sat on the bedside table. His replacement phone was charging beside it. Everything that had been missing had begun returning. And yet the room felt less secure than Somto's little shop, with its squeaking fan and locked inner door. At 6 in the morning, Sani brought coffee. Obiora was already at the dining table with 3 folders open. "You should rest, sirs. I have rested too much." Sani did not answer. Obiora looked up. "What?" The driver hesitated. "Nothing. Say it." Sani shifted his weight. "You did not rest, sir. You disappeared." Obiora leaned back. Sani had worked for him long enough to say things other staff would not. Fair. Madam Esther called me that first night. We were checking hospitals. Then Mr. Tayo said you had sent word through another channel that you wanted no attention. Did he show you the message? No. Did you ask? Sani looked uncomfortable. He is managing director. That is not an answer. No, sir, I did not ask. Obiora nodded. Neither did I, for too many things. He looked back at the folders. The acquisition documents were not fraudulent in the easy, cinematic sense. That would have made everything simpler. They were worse in a more ordinary way. Layers of decisions. A feasibility memo that assumed most tenants would leave voluntarily. An agent engagement letter with language broad enough to encourage early possession. A relocation support budget reduced after the finance team questioned project costs. A board summary that described occupied properties as low-complexity residential interests. Low complexity. Obiora read the phrase 3 times. Somto's sewing machine was low complexity. Halima's rent receipt was low complexity. Mama Titi's knees were low complexity. He closed the folder. At 9, Tayo George called. Obiora let it ring once, twice, then answered. Good morning, Tayo. There was silence. Then, sir. Tayo's voice had always been controlled. Today it was too controlled. Where are you? Alive. Thank God. You knew that? Sir? You told staff I had requested privacy. Tayo took a breath. We were receiving conflicting information. After your phone went offline, Sani could not reach you. I did not want panic. There were financing discussions in progress. Did I send you any instruction? No direct instruction. Then why did you say I had? I said we understood that you wanted privacy. That is not what Sani heard. Another pause. Sir, I was trying to prevent speculation. By creating a fact, I was managing risk. Obiora rubbed his thumb along the edge of the folder, that phrase. Managing risk. Another clean phrase. What happened with Meridian? Tayo's voice changed almost invisibly. We progressed what was already approved. What was already approved? The corridor consolidation strategy. I approved exploration. And preliminary negotiations. Yes, we were losing time. 2 counterparties had deadlines. So you widened the mandate. I acted within what I believed was commercially necessary. Obiora stared out the window. Tayo, do not use necessity to answer an authority question. Silence. Then Tayo said, Sir, you have been away from operations for years. You appointed me to make decisions. I did. And I made them. You also told people I authorized something I did not. I made a judgment call. On my existence, that silenced him. Tayo lowered his voice. Sir, let us meet before this becomes bigger than it needs to be. Obiora almost laughed. Everybody wanted trouble to remain the size they preferred. Tomorrow, Daniel's office. No, come to headquarters. Tomorrow, Daniel's office. Tayo exhaled. Fine. The call ended. Obiora sat for a while. Then he picked up his new phone and called Somto. She declined. He called once more. Declined. He did not call a third time. At the compound, Somto was busy turning fear into paperwork. Halima had spread rent receipts across the cutting table. Mr. Bello brought photocopies. Mama Titi brought nothing. My husband used to keep all these things, she said. Since he died, I do not know where some papers are. Somto did not scold her. Bring whatever you have. Bank transfer alerts. Messages from Seyi. Anything. By noon, 8 tenants had contributed documents. Somto made a simple list. Name, room, years occupied, rent paid, receipt available, business affected. Notice received. She was not a lawyer. She did not pretend to be. She simply made sure nobody's story vanished because they were bad at filing. Mr. Bello watched her writing. Somto, if they pay us proper money, I can move. That is your choice. You will not vex. Why will I vex? The point is to have choice. Halima looked at her. Somto continued writing. If somebody wants to sell building, fine. If company wants to buy, fine. But do not make us confused until we leave cheap. Do not make old woman afraid. Do not tell one person one thing and another person another thing. Mr. Bello nodded. That sentence became the center of the tenant's response. Not we will never leave. Not rich people are evil. Choice, information, time, fair terms. By evening, Sei arrived again. This time he was less friendly. I hear people are organizing meetings. Somto stood at her doorway. We live together. We talk. You are creating unnecessary tension. By reading our papers, you people should not make this difficult. Halima stepped out behind Somto. What is difficult? Sei ignored her. He faced Somto. Some tenants are willing to cooperate. If you create problems, you may affect everyone. Somto smiled without warmth. Then give everybody the same written information. I am not authorized to discuss final terms. Then stop discussing unofficial ones. Sei's face tightened. You think because one rich man visited here yesterday, you have connection now? Somto went still. So people had noticed the SUV. Sei continued. I do not know who you are trying to impress, but development will happen. Somto's voice dropped. Who told you about the rich man? Sei hesitated. Wrong move. Halima saw it too. Sei? He recovered. Everybody saw the vehicle. You said rich man. The windows were tinted. Mr. Bello came out of his shop. Sei glanced around. You people like drama. He turned to leave. Somto said, From now on, anything about moving, send it in writing. Sei waved one hand. Fine. Not voice note. Writing. He kept walking. Somto watched until he reached the gate. Halima whispered, He knows. Yes. How? Somto looked at the notice in her hand. I do not know. The next day, Obiora met Tayo. Tayo arrived in an emerald green suit, so well cut, it seemed almost rude beside Daniel's plain office furniture. He had lost weight since Obiora last saw him. Or perhaps Obiora had not been looking closely enough before. Tayo entered, stopped, and stared. For a moment, all corporate calculation disappeared. You are really alive. Obiora held his gaze. Yes. Tayo sat. Daniels remained at one side of the room. Esther was not there. This meeting was not nostalgia. Tayo leaned forward. Sir, whatever you think happened, I did not know where you were. You knew enough to tell people I wanted privacy. I was trying to hold the company steady. By misrepresenting my instructions, by preventing a run of rumors, while we had lenders reviewing a facility. Obiora slid one document across the table. What is this? Tayo glanced at it. Meridian's acquisition schedule. I did not approve the accelerated schedule. You approved the strategy. Again, Tayo sat back. For the first time, irritation surfaced. Sir, respectfully, strategy without execution is paper, and execution without authority is what? Tayo's jaw moved. Leadership. Daniels looked down at his notes. Obiora almost admired the answer. Almost, Tayo continued. You stepped away, sir, for 3 years. Every difficult call came to me. Every staff issue. Every delayed customer. Every lender. Every warehouse problem. Every project nobody wanted to sign. You wanted summaries. I gave you summaries, and what did you leave out? The noise, the people. Tayo's eyes narrowed. Which people? Tenants, small businesses, occupants being pressured to leave before terms are clear. Understanding appeared. Then anger. This is about that tailor. Obiora went cold. Her name is Somto. That is not my point. It is mine. Tayo gave a short laugh. This is exactly why we should discuss privately. You have had a traumatic week. A woman helped you. You feel indebted. Fine, we can compensate her. Obiora stared at him. Teo continued, mistaking silence for permission. Move her. Give her a shop. Whatever is reasonable. But do not jeopardize a financing package because of one compound. Obiora's voice became very quiet. You just described the problem. What problem? You think one woman becoming visible solves what happens to everyone still invisible. Tayo sat back. Sir, businesses make trade-offs. Yes. We cannot build a logistics corridor without acquiring property. I know. We cannot make every tenant happy. I know. Then what are we discussing? Whether we lied, whether we pressured, whether we reduced relocation support, while telling the board the process remained fair, whether my absence was used as permission. Tayo's face changed. There. Not guilt exactly. Calculation. Obiora saw it. I need full minutes, agent instructions, budget revisions, and correspondence on Meridian. Tayo gave a slow nod. You are returning formally? Yes. Then you should understand what that does. Tell me. The current facility is tied to milestone completion. If you suspend acquisitions, we breach internal projections. If confidence drops, expansion freezes. Warehouses, already under construction, slow down. Contractors get hit. Staff hiring stops. You are saying innocent people may pay for your shortcuts. I am saying innocent people may pay for your sudden conscience. The words entered the room and stayed. Daniels looked up. Obiora did not move. Tayo leaned forward. You want honesty. Fine, you were not here. You stopped coming. You stopped challenging. You signed the high-level papers and left me to carry the mess. Now, because 1 week outside your gate has made the world feel different, you want to discover morality. Obiora's face hardened, but he did not reject it. That unsettled Tayo more than anger would have. You are partly right, Obiora said. Tayo blinked. I should have been present. I should have asked better questions. I should have seen more than numbers. That is mine. Tayo stared. Obiora continued. But my failure does not become your license. The meeting ended without agreement. Tayo left first. In the corridor, he called Sei. Do not contact the woman again directly. Sei sounded nervous. Sir, she is organizing tenants. I said, do not contact her directly. What about notices? Through normal channel only. Yes, sir. And find out exactly what documents she has. Sei hesitated. How? Tayo closed his eyes. Legally, Sei, do not be stupid. Yes, sir. Tayo ended the call. He stood by the staircase for several seconds. He was not thinking about Somto. He was thinking about the board meeting. About the facility. About the email chain where he had written that chairman's silence should be treated as operational consent unless expressly withdrawn. At the time, it had felt practical. Now it looked different. He called his assistant. Move the board pack forward. To when, sir? Tomorrow afternoon. Chairman Wosu has not. Tomorrow. He ended the call. Pressure had created the first shortcut. Now the first shortcut was demanding another. At the compound, Somto finally answered Obiora that evening. What? His voice came through the phone. I need to see you. No. Fair. She almost ended the call. Then he said, Tayo offered to move you personally. Somto's hand tightened around the phone. What? He said we could compensate you, find you another shop, and leave the larger project alone. Somto was silent. Obiora continued. I refused. Why are you telling me? Because I want to ask what you want. Somto leaned against the doorframe. The compound was noisy around her. A generator coughed. Somebody was frying plantain. Mama Titi was arguing with a supplier. What do I want? Yes, come tomorrow morning. He arrived at 8. No SUV at the gate this time. Sani dropped him 2 streets away. Obiora walked in wearing a simple cobalt blue senator outfit. Clean lines. No jewelry except a watch. The color made him look like the man his old photographs had only suggested. Somto hated that part of her noticed. Halima saw him first. Chairman has upgraded, Obiora sighed. Good morning, Halima. Good morning, Billionaire. Please. She walked away smiling. Somto stood inside the shop. The charcoal shirt lay folded on the table, shoulder seams still unrepaired. Obiora noticed. He did not mention it. Somto pointed to a chair. He sat. She remained standing. You asked what I want. Yes. I do not want a shop from you. I expected that. Do not expect me. Listen. He nodded. If you move me somewhere and leave everybody else, what have you solved? Your immediate problem. Exactly, my problem. Because I know you. Yes, what about the woman next door? The barber downstairs, Mama Titi? Who is their billionaire friend? Obiora said nothing. Somto continued. I am not saying your company cannot buy property. I am not a child. Landlord can sell. Business can develop. But people should know what is happening. They should have time. They should understand what they are signing. If support was promised, it should not disappear because somebody wants better numbers. Obiora looked at her. You have copies of the notices? Yes. Receipts? For most tenants. Messages from Sei? Yes. Would people be willing to explain what he told them? Some. Would they speak in a formal meeting? Somto laughed. Formal meeting with rich people? Yes. Half of them will forget English. They can speak how they speak. That is easy for you to say. No, it is easy for me to arrange interpretation of what is relevant without changing meaning. Somto studied him. What are you planning? A review. Internal? Yes. Your people investigating your people, initially. If misconduct requiring external action is found, that is separate. I will not invent crime because we are angry. Somto nodded slowly. That answer mattered. What do you need from me? Nothing you do not want to give, Obiora. He smiled faintly. Direct question, yes. I need the human record. Notices, dates, what was said, who was pressured. Not rumors, not revenge. Facts. Somto sat. And what will you do with them? Pause the acquisition steps that depend on disputed tenant cooperation until we review the process. Can you? I can request, and within my authority, require the group entities I control to pause certain actions. I cannot erase every contract by speaking. Good, he raised an eyebrow. Good. At least you are no longer sounding like Billionaire from film. He laughed, a real one. Short. Somto almost smiled. Then she remembered why he was there. Obiora. Yes. If this becomes a way to make you look good, I am out. His face settled. Understood. And if your company did something wrong, you do not get to stand there and say only Tayo did it. He looked at her for a long time. I know. No, I want you to say it. He inhaled. My company carries my name. I appointed Tayo. I accepted distance because it was easier for me. If the system harmed people because I stopped looking closely, that responsibility does not disappear because I did not personally send the notice. Somto sat back. That was the first answer he had given her that did not sound like defense. All right, she said. All right. I will show you what we have. He nodded. But I am not your witness. What are you? Somto. That smile again. Fair. The next 48 hours were not dramatic in the way people imagined power to be dramatic. Nobody arrived with police. Nobody smashed a desk. Nobody shouted, "I am the owner!" It was emails, requests, copies, dates. That was how serious things often moved. Slow enough to look boring, until somebody realized one line could decide whether 10 families had time to move, or 10 days. Daniels arranged a temporary secure office for Obiora away from the headquarters. Esther came in twice to help him reconstruct the old governance trail. Sani brought food and complained whenever Obiora forgot to eat. Somto brought a brown envelope. Inside were photocopies from the compound. She had numbered them herself. Obiora opened the first. Tenant 1, Bello Sani, barber. 7 years. Mr. Bello, Somto corrected. Obiora looked up. Yes, Mr. Bello. Do not turn people into numbers so quickly. He put down his pen. That is fair. She sat opposite him. Daniels hid a smile. The documents were messy. Some rent receipts had faded. Some messages were screenshots with no context. One voice note could not be used as written evidence until the speaker agreed to explain it. Somto did not pretend otherwise. If something is rumor, remove it, she said. Daniels nodded. Good. Halima had written a short statement describing the day Sayi told her that smart tenants should leave before formal terms because later support might be lower. Mr. Bello had a WhatsApp exchange asking whether his barber equipment would be considered in relocation. Sayi had replied, "Sign first, compensation details later." Daniels circled that. That is not necessarily unlawful by itself, he said, but it contradicts the company's stated process if signing was being sought before material terms were clear. Somto nodded. Use what is true. Do not make it bigger. Obiora looked at her. She caught him. What? Nothing, that face again. I was thinking you would have made a good auditor. I make dresses. Both require measuring before cutting. Somto rolled her eyes. Do not become philosopher. The board committee meeting moved forward to Friday afternoon. Tayo had done that. Obiora knew why. If the committee endorsed the financing package before his formal return was fully circulated, reversing the acquisition plan would become harder. Not impossible. Harder. Tayo called 2 directors privately. He told them Obiora had suffered a period of significant stress and might be acting under emotional pressure. He did not call Obiora incompetent. He was too careful for that. He simply planted doubt. By Friday morning, the doubt had reached Daniels. Expect them to ask whether your recent experience has affected your judgment. Obiora gave a dry laugh. It has. Daniels looked at him. That is not the answer I recommend. It is the truthful one. Truthful does not mean strategically wise. Obiora leaned back. Before last week, I thought our relocation policy was functioning, because I read a page saying it was functioning. Now I know that assumption was weak. If that changes my judgment, good. Daniels sighed. You are determined to make my work difficult. I pay you. You have not paid me yet. Somto, sitting in the corner with her envelope, laughed. Obiora pointed at her. Do not encourage him. The meeting was held at the company headquarters. It was Somto's first time inside. Glass, cold air, security that smiled now because her name was on a list. She disliked that most. 3 days earlier, the same kind of gate had kept Obiora outside because he looked wrong. Today, one email made her respectable. She stored the lesson quietly. At reception, a young woman offered her water. Somto accepted. Then she looked at the polished floor and imagined Sei standing there, telling a director that tenants were cooperating. She understood something. The people making decisions did not need to be monsters. They only needed to be far enough away. The boardroom held 9 people, not 20, not a crowd. That mattered too. There was no audience waiting to clap for justice. Only people with folders, tablets, and responsibilities. Tayo sat near the center of the table in a dark emerald jacket with a ruby pocket square, perfectly controlled. He looked at Somto once. No contempt. No recognition beyond calculation. Obiora entered last, cobalt blue. He did not sit at the head immediately. He greeted each director. Some stood, some did not. One older director, Mrs. Grace Johnson, hugged him briefly and then scolded him for disappearing. That broke the stiffness for 30 seconds. Then the meeting began. Daniels was present as Obiora's personal counsel. The company's own legal advisor sat opposite. The distinction was stated clearly. No one pretended one lawyer represented everybody. Tayo opened first. He welcomed Obiora's return. He spoke about continuity, financing, project deadlines, jobs, supply chain growth. Everything he said was partly true. That was what made him dangerous. The Isolo corridor is not a vanity project, Tayo said. It supports warehouse consolidation, truck access, and lower operating costs. Delays affect contractors already mobilized. A director asked, "How many occupied properties remain unresolved?" Tayo checked a paper. 11 residential interests and 4 mixed use. Somto looked at Obiora. Residential's interests. There it was again. People becoming language. Obiora said, "How many people?" Tayo paused. "Occupancy varies." "How many people?" "We do not have a verified headcount." "Why?" "The acquisition agents deal with tenancy particulars." Obiora leaned back. "You are asking this committee to approve funding tied to possession milestones, and we do not know how many people are being displaced." Tayo's mouth tightened. Displaced is a loaded term. Somto's fingers curled around her notebook. Obiora saw, but did not look at her. "What term would you prefer?" "Relocated." "Do we know where?" Silence. One director turned to the papers. Another asked for the relocation budget. Tayo provided it. Obiora compared it with an earlier approved figure. Why was this reduced? Cost optimization by 32%. Projected acceptance rates changed. Based on what? Agent feedback, that was the door. Obiora looked at Daniels. Daniels passed copies of 2 internal emails. The first was from a project manager warning that tenants were confused about terms and requesting standard written guidance. The second was Tayo's reply. "Do not delay possession conversations while documentation is being finalized." Tayo read it. His expression did not change. "That is not an instruction to mislead anybody." Obiora nodded. "Correct." Tayo looked surprised. Obiora continued. "It is an instruction to continue conversations before documentation was finalized. So the question is what those conversations became." He looked toward Somto, not dramatically. "Just an invitation." Mrs. Johnson asked, "Mimsib, you are one of the tenants?" Somto nodded. "Yes, Ma. You have agreed to speak?" "Yes. Please tell us what happened. Only what you personally know." Somto opened her notebook. Her throat was dry. For one dangerous second, every polished face in the room became too much. She remembered Halima joking that half the compound would forget English. Somto nearly did. Then she thought of her sewing machine. A machine did not care who wore the cloth. "You measured?" You cut. You joined. One step, she began. My name is Somto Ibe. I rent a room and front workspace in the compound on Arowulo Street. I have been there 4 years. She did not tell them Obiora had slept in her shop. Not yet. That was not evidence about the acquisition. She described the first notice. The second visit. The conflicting statements. She read Sei's message to Mr. Bello. She explained Mama Titi's missing documents and why confusion had made the older woman afraid to ask questions. Tayo interrupted once. With respect, Ms. Ibe, Mr. Adeyemi is an external agent. His wording should not be attributed to management without evidence of instruction. Somto looked at him. That is fair. The room shifted slightly. Tayo had expected a fight. Somto continued, I am not saying you told him those exact words. I am saying he represented a project connected to your company, and ordinary tenants had no other person to ask. Mrs. Johnson wrote something down. Somto went on. If I insult a customer while wearing my shop name, I cannot tell her my mouth is external contractor. A director coughed into his hand. Another smiled despite himself. Tayo did not. Somto closed her notebook. We are not asking your company never to build anything. Some tenants may even prefer to take money and move. But people need the same information. Time, clear terms, a way to ask questions. If you promise support, do not reduce it somewhere upstairs and let the agent use fear downstairs. Silence. No applause. Somto was grateful. Applause would have made it feel like theater. Mrs. Johnson asked, Did anyone threaten you directly? No, Ma. Were you told you had already lost legal rights? No. We were told people who cooperated early might do better. It made people afraid. Did you sign anything? No. Why? Because I do not sign what I do not understand. Thank you. Somto sat. Tayo opened a folder. Chair, if I may. We should separate an imperfect agent interaction from the commercial necessity of the project. We can strengthen communication without suspending a facility. One director agreed. Another asked whether a pause would trigger penalties. The finance director explained. The answer was not catastrophic, but it was not free. A delay could cost money. Contractors could be affected. Some hiring could be postponed. Tayo looked at Obiora. This is what I have been trying to tell you. Decisions have consequences on both sides. Obiora nodded. They do. Tayo leaned forward. We can replace the agent. Increase the tenant budget modestly. Offer Ms. Ibe and the most affected occupants direct relocation packages. Keep the schedule. Somato's jaw tightened. Obiora said, No. Tayo stared. No to which part? To solving visible individuals and leaving the process unchanged. Sir, we cannot redesign governance because one. He stopped. Too late. One what? Somto asked. Tayo turned to her. One cluster of complaints. Obiora's gaze stayed on him. Continue. Tayo did not. Mrs. Johnson asked the company legal advisor whether the committee had received complete minutes from the last project oversight meeting. The lawyer checked. No, we have a summary. Why? Tayo answered. The full minutes were awaiting approval. Obiora slid another paper forward. Then, why does the financing memorandum say the oversight committee had cleared possession risk? The finance director frowned. Tayo looked at the page. It reflects the operational position. It reflects a clearance that was not final. It reflects no material objection. A young director named Victor George, not related to Tayo, spoke for the first time. There was an objection. He tapped the project manager's email. Confusion among occupants is a risk. Tayo's voice sharpened. Not a financing risk at that stage. Victor looked at him. It is now. The room went quiet. Then Daniel spoke. There is another matter the board should hear directly from Mr. Nwosu. Obiora had not wanted to dramatize his disappearance, but Tayo had made it relevant. He explained the robbery, the failed calls, the attempt at the gate. Then Sunny's account. That staff had been told Obiora wanted privacy. That Tayo had represented silence as a form of instruction. Tayo's face hardened. I have explained in this. I was preventing panic. Mrs. Johnson asked, did Obiora instruct you to tell staff he was safe? No. Did anybody? No, so you assumed. I used judgment. Did that judgment give you greater room to act? Tayo's eyes flashed. That is an offensive implication. Obiora said, then answer it. Tayo turned to him. You want a confession? Fine. Yes, your absence gave me room, because somebody had to act. The words were not shouted. That made them heavier, Tayo continued. You left us with half decisions. You wanted growth without conflict, expansion without complaints. You wanted to be the founder who cared about people while somebody else negotiated with people who did not want to sell. I handled what you avoided. Obiora's face did not change. Tayo pointed at the files. Was I too aggressive? Maybe. Did I compress timelines? Yes. Did I tell staff you wanted privacy because I believed public uncertainty would damage the company? Yes. But do not sit there as if I invented the conditions. Nobody moved. Somto looked at Obiora. This was the moment a weaker man would protect himself. Blame the subordinate. Save the founder. Obiora put both palms on the table. Tayo made these choices, he said. Tayo gave a bitter laugh. Obiora continued. But I built a company where one man's absence could become permission for all of this. The laugh died. Obiora looked around the room. I appointed him. I stepped away. I accepted summaries, because grief made distance easier, and success made distance comfortable. I did not order tenants to be pressured. I did not authorize false representation of my instructions. But if I stand here and say none of this belongs to me, then I am doing the same thing I accused Tayo of doing. Somto felt something in her chest loosen. Not forgiveness, something smaller, trust reopening 1 inch. Obiora turned to the committee. I am requesting 3 things. 1. Pause new possession commitments on the disputed occupied properties, long enough for a documented review. 2. Restore the relocation and communication safeguards that were reduced, subject to proper cost review. 3. Place Mr. Tayo George on temporary administrative leave from matters under review, not as punishment before findings, but to protect the process. Tayo stood. You are suspending me. I am asking the board committee to approve temporary leave pending review. You think changing the words changes what it is? No. Tayo looked at the directors. This company will pay for sentiment. Somto stood too. Nobody had asked her. She could not stop herself. Maybe. Every face turned. Somto's voice remained calm. But people also pay when companies call everything sentiment. Tayo stared at her. She stared back. No triumphant music. No bodyguards, no crowd, just one tailor and one managing director in a cold room. Mrs. Johnson asked Somto to sit. Somto did. The committee voted, not unanimously. That mattered. 6 supported the temporary pause and review. 2 opposed. 1 abstained. Tayo's administrative leave on the reviewed matters passed separately. 5-3, with 1 abstention. Close. Real. Expensive. Tayo remained standing after the vote. His face had gone pale around the mouth. He looked at Obiora. "You will regret making this public inside the company." Obiora answered, "Probably. You think she will still respect you when jobs are cut?" Somto spoke before Obiora could. "Do not use workers as human shield for your decisions." Tayo turned on her. "You know nothing about running a company, correct?" The answer stopped him. Somto continued, "But I know when somebody is using another person's suffering to avoid answering his own question." Tayo stared. Then he picked up his folder. At the door he stopped. For 1 second, Somto thought he would say something dramatic. He did not. He left. That was all, and it was enough, because sometimes consequences did not arrive wearing handcuffs. Sometimes they arrived as a chair that was no longer yours to occupy while people checked what you had done with it. The review took 7 weeks. That annoyed everybody. Tayo's supporters said it was dragging. The tenants said it was still too fast. Contractors wanted certainty. Directors wanted numbers. Lawyers wanted documents in the correct order. Somto learned something during those weeks. Justice that had to survive after the room emptied was slower than revenge. Revenge needed 1 moment. Repair needed schedules, meetings, phone calls, people changing what they had been doing. The acquisition pause remained in place for the occupied properties. Not forever. Long enough. The company appointed a new community liaison team that did not report to the acquisition agent. Written information was standardized. Tenants received individual meetings where terms were explained before signatures. People were allowed to bring somebody with them. Somto insisted on that point. Somebody hearing with you is different from somebody hearing for you, she said. The company restored most of the relocation support that had been cut. Though not every request was granted, Mr. Bello chose to move. He negotiated enough support to rent a smaller shop near a busier road and move his barber chairs. He was delighted. "You see, development has blessed me." Halima looked at him. "Last month you were ready to curse everybody." "That was last month." Somto laughed. Mastiti stayed longer. The final redevelopment plan was adjusted, so one portion of the property would not be required immediately. That gave her almost a year before she needed to make another decision. She cried when she heard. Then she complained that 1 year was still too short. That was Mama Titi. Nobody became grateful for the bare minimum. Somto liked that. The formal review found that Tayo had not stolen company money. There was no hidden suitcase of cash, no secret foreign account, no police raid. What it found was more ordinary and more damaging to the trust he had built. He had repeatedly stretched delegated authority. He had described Obiora's silence as support when no such support had been given. He had allowed financing documents to carry stronger statements about project readiness than the underlying oversight records justified. He had pressured teams to keep possession conversations moving before tenant communication standards were complete. And when staff questioned the speed, he had treated delay as disloyalty. The board removed him as managing director. Not in one afternoon. Not with guards escorting him past cheering workers. There was a formal process. He was given an opportunity to respond. He argued that the board was punishing decisiveness after benefiting from it for years. There was truth inside that complaint. The board had rewarded speed. Obiora had rewarded speed. The company could not honestly pretend Tayo had invented the culture alone. That became part of the final report, too. Tayo left with what his contract and the final process entitled him to. He did not lose everything, but he lost the one thing he had been trying hardest to protect: control. For months afterward, other companies asked questions before offering him senior roles. Some admired his aggression. Others saw risk. His reputation became complicated. That was consequence enough. Obiora did something that surprised Somto. He did not return immediately to running the company every day. Instead, he restructured how decisions reached him. He created a small operations and community risk committee with people who could challenge project assumptions before they became polished summaries. He required major acquisition papers to include actual occupancy impact, not only parcel numbers. He also returned to site visits, not disguised, not secretly pretending to be poor. He went as himself, sometimes in cobalt, sometimes in a plain shirt, always announced properly. The first few visits were awkward. Staff performed for him. Everybody became efficient the moment chairman entered. So Obiora changed tactics. He asked junior staff questions in smaller groups. What is not working? Which instruction makes no sense? Where do customers complain repeatedly? What are managers not telling me? At first, nobody answered. Then one person did. After that, another. It was not a miracle. Culture changed slowly. People had to see that honesty did not become punishment. Obiora also called his daughter every Sunday. That change had nothing to do with corporate governance. It had everything to do with 3 nights when he could not remember her number. The first Sunday, she shouted at him for 20 minutes. Somto heard about it later. She was correct, Somto said. I know. Did you apologize? Yes. Properly? What does that mean? No, I am sorry you were worried. That fake apology. Obiora stared at her. You have categories? I have experience. He laughed. Yes. Properly. Somto's own life changed more quietly. The company offered her a permanent management job 2 weeks after the board review. She refused it. Obiora was not offended. You do not even know the salary. I know I do not want to sit in your office 5 days a week. You would have your own office. Still inside your office. Technically not my. She raised one finger. He stopped. Instead, Somto accepted a 6-month paid role, helping design the resident communication process for the remaining acquisitions. Not because she had become an expert in property law. She had not. Her job was narrower. Read public-facing notices, sit in selected meetings. Flag language ordinary tenants were likely to misunderstand. Help organize questions. Make sure people knew which decisions were final and which were still proposals. She insisted the contract say exactly that. Obiora read it and smiled. What? You are checking my contract. Our contract, exactly. Her fee was respectable, not billionaire fantasy money. Enough that, combined with her savings, it moved one dream forward. 3 months later, Somto stood inside an empty shop near the main road. Proper glass front. 2 rooms. A small fitting area. Space for formations without anybody touching anybody. The rent frightened her. That was how she knew the decision mattered. Halima stood beside her, arms folded. Take it. Somto looked around. The rent is wicked. Take it. Transport from the compound. Take it. Generate a contribution, Somto. What? You have been pricing this shop for 2 weeks. If you do not take it, I will take it and open pharmacy. You cannot sew. I will employ you. Somto laughed. The landlord's agent waited by the door. Somto opened her blue exercise book. The pages were full now, not because Obiora had handed her a check. He had never done that. Her 6-month contract helped. Her tailoring helped more. The wedding season had been good. Mr. Bello referred customers. Halima forced every nurse she knew to bring uniforms. Somto had done the arithmetic 4 times. She could pay the deposit and still keep emergency money. That last part mattered. She signed. Not because she understood every word, because she had asked questions until she did. The new sign outside read, Somto Alterations and Design. Nothing fancy. She considered House of Somto, rejected it. Too much pressure. Opening day was a Saturday. Halima brought jollof rice. Mr. Bello brought soft drinks. Mama Titi arrived 40 minutes late and complained that the chair was too low. Sani came with a small gift from Obiora. Somto frowned at the wrapped box. What is this? Sani raised both hands. I did not buy it. She opened it. Inside was a new industrial steam iron. Somto stared. Then she checked the receipt. There was a note, for work, not rescue. O.N. She smiled despite herself. Where is he? Coming. Why late? Sani looked offended. Traffic. Somto stared at him. You are driver. Am I controlling Lagos? Fair. Obiora arrived 20 minutes later. No convoy, 1 car. He walked in carrying something under his arm. Not flowers, a brown paper bag. Somto looked suspicious. If that is another expensive gift, it is not. He placed the bag on the cutting table. Open. Inside was her old plastic stool, the one he had fixed on his first morning. Somto stared. You stole my stool. Borrowed. For 3 months? I wanted to repair it properly. You repaired it already. One leg was still weaker. Halima started laughing from the doorway. Somto lifted the stool. It had been sanded and reinforced underneath. Still the same cheap stool. Still scratched, now annoyingly solid. You are a strange billionaire. Obiora nodded. I have been told. They put the stool near the fitting room. For the rest of the afternoon, people came and went. Customers, neighbors. 2 women from the compound. A young apprentice Somto had recently hired 3 days a week. Obiora stayed longer than she expected. He did not stand at the center. He sat on the repaired stool until Somto chased him off because a customer needed it. Late in the day, when the food was finished and Halima had gone back to work, the shop finally became quiet. Obiora stood by the window. Somto was folding fabric. He said, I have something to ask you. Ask, why did you help me? Somto did not look up. Which time? The first night. Rain, that is not a reason. It is a reason. You were wet. You did not know who I was. No. You did not know whether I could repay you. No. You were suspicious of me. Very. So why? Somto folded another piece. You did not force your way under my awning. Obiora frowned. That is it? No, she thought. You asked how much for 1 button. He smiled. That button again. Yes, you remember small things. Small things tell truth before big things prepare speech. Obiora considered that. Somto continued, and Halima was there. Front room had separate door. You answered enough questions. I took a risk, not madness. He nodded. That distinction had stayed with him from the beginning. Compassion with a lock on the inner door. Care without surrendering judgment. Somto looked up. Also, you looked tired. That is less profound. Good. They smiled. Then Obiora's face changed. I need to say something. Somto waited. If I had not been connected to your compound, would what you did still matter? She frowned. Of course. I mean to me, you tell me. He looked around the shop. I spent years believing money solved vulnerability. Not every vulnerability, but enough that I stopped imagining what it feels like when ordinary access disappears. Somto leaned against the table. My phone disappeared. Wallet disappeared. Suddenly, I did not know numbers. People did not believe my name. A gate I owned part of could keep me outside. You did not own the gate. You know what I mean. Yes, he continued, and then you helped me without knowing any of that. Somto's face tightened slightly. Do not make me saint. I am not. Good. Saints do not check locks twice. Fair. And if another person comes tomorrow, I am not bringing him inside because one billionaire passed through. Obiora laughed. I would be concerned if you did. She smiled. Then her eyes moved to a shelf behind him. Something was wrapped there in brown paper. She had nearly forgotten. Wait. She went to the shelf. Obiora watched. Somto brought the package to the cutting table. Open. He did. Inside was the charcoal shirt. The one from the rain. The one from the foam mattress. The one with the button she had sewn before she knew anything. It was clean. Pressed. The torn shoulder seam had been repaired so neatly he had to turn it toward the light to find the line. Obiora did not speak. Somto touched the cuff. That first button was ugly. I changed it. He rubbed his thumb over the new one. You kept this? It was still your shirt. He looked at her. Something passed across his face. Not tears. Not yet. Just the effort not to let them come. Somto looked away first. Do not start crying in my new shop. Customers will think I overcharged you. Obiora laughed under his breath. He folded the shirt, slowly, carefully. The man had suits in wardrobes across Lagos. He had shirts made from fabric. Somto would not waste on practice. He had watches worth more than the deposit on her new shop. But he folded that old charcoal shirt as if it could not be replaced. At the door, he stopped. Somto. Yes? Thank you, she pointed at the shirt. For repair, you owe me. He stared. Then he laughed. How much? She named an ordinary tailoring price. Obiora reached for his wallet. Somto held up one hand. Transfer. He looked offended. You do not trust cash? I need record. That made him laugh harder. He transferred the exact amount, not 1 naira more. Somto's phone beeped. She checked. Good. He turned to leave. Obiora. Ora! He looked back. Somto nodded toward the paper bag. Do not forget your shirt. He picked it up. This time, he did not leave anything behind. Months later, people in the old compound still argued about whether the redevelopment had helped them or disturbed their lives. Both could be true. Mr. Bello liked his new location. Mama Titi hated packing. Halima eventually moved closer to work and complained that her new neighbors were too quiet. Somto's old front room became part of a redesigned commercial strip after agreements were completed. Nothing stayed frozen because one story had reached its ending. That was the point. People were not props in somebody else's lesson. They had rent, jobs, preferences, bad tempers, rights, mistakes, choices, and consequences. For Soms, too, the strangest part was never discovering that Obiora had money. Money explained his company. It did not explain his character. The things that mattered had happened before she knew his net worth. He respected a locked door. She fixed a button. He listened when she told him he was wrong. She refused to be bought out of a shared problem. And when power finally returned to his hands, he learned that responsibility had to return with it. That is what stays with me from this story. Somto's kindness would still have mattered if Obiora had never owned a company, a warehouse, or even a proper pair of shoes. Human dignity cannot depend on a hidden reward waiting behind somebody's hardship. And power deserves respect only when it accepts responsibility for the lives its decisions touch. Sometimes the most valuable thing we can give another person is not rescue. It is fair treatment, clear boundaries, and the chance to remain fully human.